Hey folks, welcome back. I'm Tim. Today we're going to carry on with our roof project. We're putting a roof back on this old cow shed where the roof had fallen in years ago. And we are getting somewhere now. We've made some good progress. The purlins are up, just laying flat. First job of the morning is for me to go up there, start spacing out all of these cleats. Over the past few months, whilst I've been kind of umming and ahhing and working out how to approach this build, I've seen endless different ways of fixing purlins to the roofs. Most of the time it's cleats, but actually sometimes it's completely different. I was at the farm park near here, Adam Henson's place. He's got a portal frame, which is all timber. So purlins, you know, forming a truss, a portal frame in the timber with steel columns. But the actual cleats are just short lengths of the same purlin stock cut on an angle, and I couldn't work out how they were bolted in. Here's a little screenshot. So that was an option as well, but we'll go with the cleats. We can always, it's easy to add extra fixings if we think we need them. So here we go, this is the first one. I'm now going to measure down, fit my cleat, flip them up. Actually made sure yesterday as we put them up, I've marked a B and a T on them so I know which way. If there's a slight crown to the purlin when I've sighted down it, I've got that up, so I know that they all just need to be flipped to, you know, downhill. I've only put these cleats on so far, so I'm not expecting them to all be parallel that side, but the pitch looks good, and hopefully we're going to be similar to coming down to this wall plate. I'll put a string line up in a minute. Right, look, it's blue skies now. You wouldn't believe it's the end of November. I'm going to get on now and get these purlins finally fixed down. I'm going to drill some holes because I haven't got long enough bolts. Oh sorry, my bolts are too long. So I'm going to order some short ones, but I want to get the holes drilled now. Before screws in there really solid into the purlin itself, but then down into the stud wall I need to put some bolts. I'll bolt them from underneath, or I'll put a bolt in and then I've got a nut under the underside. So for that one I'm just going to drill the holes, because obviously once the roof sheet's on I'm never going to be able to get a drill above, and it's just easiest to do it now. What I'm going to do now is mark up a piece of timber, and then I'm going to fix that as a bit of a brace, probably on the underside, so that I get all the roof sheets on, and I know that these purlins are the same distance apart from each other in the middle of the span as they are on the edges. Alright, we're back. It's another episode with the Chuckle Brothers. We're going to lift these roof sheets on today. And the sun was out, not anymore.
I think the head technique works quite well, to be fair.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, that's way better. Can you pivot round to the right?
Hang on, I can't see them.
Yeah. Okay, lower it down.
Lower it down.
Yeah. Okay. Down a bit. Up, up, up. Right, we've now precariously got our first sheet up there. There is no wind, but it's still a risk. We were just about to fix it down, and then I've done full circle. I've come back to the idea of putting a DPC on top. We're using an anti-condensation membrane on the bottom of our sheets, which holds the moisture until the airflow dries it out during the day. Therefore, you end up with moisture sat basically on top of these purlins, trapped between. And I remember in the shed at the last house, you could quite often see a darker patch. So therefore, it makes sense to put a tape or a DPC just on the upper surface. We were going to just run a piece of duct tape, some heavy duty tape over the top, but that's not wide enough to cover the whole thing. So instead, I've just ripped down a 225 DPC into half, and we're going to staple this on top. Oh, this is a dream, this one. So we'll have to peel off a little bit of felt off one of them. Next job is to get this roof light in, which is a GRP version of this corrugated roof, and I'm going to peel off just the bottom sort of 6 inches of this sheet because it's going to overlap the plastic one, otherwise it wicks up this felt. We'll do this at the gutter as well, like we did on the cabin, and then just blowtorch the underside. And there, i.e. don't stand anywhere near the stapler. Right, first boo-boo. This is because I scribbled stuff down on a dining table weeks before building, and I should have just put the structure up, then measured up for the roof sheets. So I've allowed for a 2.5 metre roof sheet below, then the clear, then 2.5. I should have had a slightly longer steel, so it steel sheet, so it overlapped that timber. Therefore I'm going to have to just put in some extra timbers underneath, a bit like when you're fitting the Velux. So I'll run something underneath there and then just frame it out, but that's fine. We know not to go there because it's not going to be as strong. We're going to run some stitcher screws there anyway, just to make sure it's all nice and tight. So the plan is solid, solid, clear, solid, clear, solid, solid. But we're losing light, but we're carrying on. It's the last sheet. Craig's just getting some sealant on. We'll be bedding it down, and we were just kind of umming and ahhing whether we go for a kind of 150mm or 200mm overhang. 200mm will equal the other side, and it means that our overlap is standard with just one undulation. 150 would just be easier to do the overhang, but I think we'll go with 200. That will shelter. We want loads of airflow but not loads of rain, so 200 overhang means that I'll just need to run some timbers out and build a bit of a fascia board before I put the barge trim on. Hi folks, welcome back. Today we're back on the front roof. As you saw in the last video, the whole back is closed in now. It's all cozy. Front is today's job. Let me show you how we're going to do it. So you've missed a few stages. I'm afraid we just got on with it because it was a bit of a chilly start, but we were cracking on with it. We've got our purlins up at the front. In the last video we discussed whether we were going to do a cut roof with rafters or if we were going to do the same with purlins. After looking at a bunch of structural stuff, a bunch of examples, I've decided to stick with the plan, which is to go with purlins, which is far more conventional for this style of building. Anyway, it's a 30-degree pitch, so it's not too steep anyway. And as you can see, we've got 3 up. They're only a metre apart, these ones, so much closer anyway. And these are also 75mm thick, all of these purlins. So that was one thing that a couple of people might not have noticed in the last video. The biggest change on this side is we're going to do a fair bit more bracing to make sure that all of this is kind of strong. It's almost like a deck which is being sat on. So we're back onto the reclaimed timber. Craig's just cut 4. That's 2 for that side, 2 for the middle, and then over here where I've just cut these extra bits to extend our overhangs to support the edge of the roof and carry the barge trim.
Saying that my measuring of custom.
Well, yeah, but the middle might have, I guess it should have sat down as well. That's what. Beautiful. Come off about 1 millimetre, but good. Right, what we've done now is we're just putting this tie in up here. That way we've blocked everything on that side. Just means we know this side is super solid and it's braced all the way down. Just by putting these 2 across here assisted together, we're linking both sides of the roof together, which should take the wobble out of it. So I'll show you the wobble now. So at the moment, does that move?
Yep.
So we've got those. Any movement?
No. Oh, perfecto.
There's only 1 screw in there at the moment. So if we put a couple of big bolts either end. Now the very last job of the day was to get the wall plate fitted. Now this wall plate is a bit different because it needs to match up and be the same height as the red brick area on the existing roof. So what I ended up doing is using a Douglas fir beam which was left over from the workshop project some of you might know from a couple of years back. Now that is 100mm thick, so well over the top for what it needs to be, but actually it means I can do a couple of posts and frame out the entrance door here in the future, and I've got somewhere to mortise into, but for the time being it's just acting as a wall plate. So unfortunately it was a little bit short. I had to do a half lap join in the dark, get all that made up. Craig bedded on some mortar. At this point it's getting really pretty cold and we were using some accelerator sort of frost proofing agent in there to try and make sure that nothing was going to be kind of a problem overnight. We wrapped it all up in Hessian and it was fine. Now one thing to mention, in the last video a few people were concerned that our roof was being stuck down by wood to mortar. Mortar is just there as a way of levelling the plates onto the wall. We'll come in then and put some bolts in the top during the construction phase and also put our strapping down the wall. You'll see that later on in this video, but nothing is just stuck with cement. Put our extra supports blocking down each side. So it's all bearing down onto this bottom wall plate. We put one in the middle that goes all the way up to the top, tying across to the other side. And we've also come down the other side on top of that stud wall. So everything is just one big rigid sort of deck on top now. This Douglas fir beam along the front is an oversized wall plate, which in the future I might put some posts either side, sort of, so it's got a nicer timber frame look. And this end that you can see is now kind of bird's mouthed into that end. So we're all good to go, which means there's only one thing for it. We've got to get all the roofing around. We've got 7 sheets, there's 3.5 meters, I think. So far easier, about, well, less than half the length of the other side. And we should be able to slide them up. Once the first one's in position, then we'll get one screw in it. We'll be able to go up on ladders and just lean over and fix them. We're not going to be climbing around on the roof this time because it's just too steep, too slippy, and they're probably covered in frost as well. Now, if you've ever fitted roofing sheets before on an old building, you'll know that it's hard to make sure that you're not going to drift off. And if things aren't square, you need to pick your own datum. And we had a string line at one point. We were basing it originally off the old corrugated roof on the right hand side. We decided in the end we'd do ours completely independent from that. So we put up the string line and we will then deal with that overlap in the future. So it crosses over a corrugation, but it's a 3 corrugation overlap, so not really an issue. But that way we made sure we didn't end up with that sawtooth sort of effect, which is basically when your roof sheets end up staggered and you're trying to correct by 10, 15, 20 mil every single time, so you end up like a sawtooth. The other option would have been to start from the left hand side and make sure that our overhang on the barge board end was fine, and then we could just deal with whatever we were left with the other end. But we were trying to lay into the prevailing wind to make sure our laps were away from the prevailing wind, and therefore we did exactly the same direction as we did on the previous side of the roof, working away from the old roof, and then we'll deal with the barge board at the end. Right, you find me up the roof, and we've been stubborn. We've decided we're going to carry on with it. We've got one more sheet to do, slightly different from the other side. GoPro's run out, it's about -3. The roof is frozen, it's all a bit dodgy up here. It's probably good that I sped up the time lapse. Craig's going to bring around the last sheet because it's not particularly easy to get on and off this roof now, safely. So that is the dangerous bit. Although it's shallow, coming back up it is not easy now because you can see it's all iced over. So might treat you to a little film with a dismount in a minute. So this is our last sheet from the end of the purlin here to here. You can see we've overlapped 2 extra corrugations. That's because we had to overlap the old roof over there. We're doing like about half the fixing, so I can come back in and finish after. We've also switched to this blue tape. We've got through quite a lot of the sealants. This blue tape is like a butyl tape you use for putting DPMs together. So we're going to use that just to bond this last one. We'll have to take out this screw and the one below it, and then we can overlap, and hopefully the barge board trim should then cover over nicely. It's fine, I can't even film when these. Oh, that was like a ribbed effect.